our podcast. Today we're going to be talking about navigating the world of parenting a teenage boy with autism spectrum disorder, which can be completely overwhelming. As a parent, it's natural to feel worried, stressed, uncertain about how best to support your son with autism. Understanding the unique challenges that come with neurodiversity is critical in providing the right kind of support and care for your child. I'm Tiffany Herlin, a licensed clinical social worker, and today I'm going to be interviewing Christopher Brown, a licensed marriage family therapist from a residential treatment program for teenage boys called Discovery Ranch. We'll talk a little more about that, but please remember that this podcast is not a replacement for therapy. Please always seek a mental health professional for your situation. Okay, let's get started.
Please. Yes.
Today's episode, first of all, thanks for coming.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome.
I got to watch you do some trainings and present, and I just think you have so much to offer our audience today for parents tuning in. So I'm excited to pick your brain and your experiences. But before we do that, this episode specifically is going to be unpacking autism spectrum disorder.
Yes.
And neurodiversity in teenage boys.
Yeah. Which
is a lot. I mean, we could probably do a couple episodes on this, right?
I'm good at talking, so yes.
Okay, good. Perfect. Our listeners are in for a treat then.
Yes.
It's going to provide an overview of autism spectrum disorder and neurodiversity in teenage boys, focusing on specifically the unique challenges parents face during the developmental stage.
Yes.
So, Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Discovery Ranch.
So a little bit about myself. I originally come from California.
Which is a great place. I'm from there too.
Yes. I was born and raised in Torrance, California,
okay.
A little bit south of Los Angeles. And I actually got my bachelor's and associate's degree at the Utah Valley State College when it was UVSC at the time, or UVU at the time, Utah Valley, UVSC at the time.
Yeah.
And then I actually went to Pepperdine University in Malibu.
Okay.
And finished up with my master's in marriage and family therapy. So I had a lot of friends here when I was in Utah, and so I really wanted to come back to the state of Utah, and I have a lot of family here as well. So I moved back here, and I love the RTC setting. I love being able to
which for our listeners is Residential Treatment Center.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna jump in, and when we
Yes.
use those acronyms that maybe someone doesn't understand,
Yes.
and spell it out for our new listeners.
I appreciate that. And so my role, I'm over at Discovery Ranch right now in Mapleton for boys, and I am specifically over our autistic program. We have a nice little bunkhouse, which is a 12-bed program over there, situated on the ranch, and we pretty much do everything that the ranch does. We work with the horses, we work with rec therapy, we do all the things that the other boys do, but our program is specifically designed to support and help that neurodiverse young man navigate the world, especially at this the struggle times, especially these teenage times when their hormones are raging, when they are emotionally dysregulated, when their social awareness skills are lack, and that they're also their life skills are struggling as well. So that is our program over there. And
you also run the neurofeedback part, which we'll talk about later on.
Yes. So I'm in charge of, I'm the supervisor of our neurofeedback program. We actually have about 20 boys on working through neurofeedback, and we actually are seeing some incredible results with that.
Yeah, it's a great technique. For our listeners, stay tuned. It'll actually be a couple episodes from now, but we're going to talk more about that.
Yes.
And one of the resources that's incredible for it. So these boys hold a special place in my own heart.
Yes.
I've worked in the umbrella of the same company as you, for our listeners, and but I worked at Oxbow Academy, which deals with boys with sexual issues.
Yes.
And I got to watch them create their own house for kids who were on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And I actually specifically went and worked over there. So these boys I love.
Yes.
Like, many people, I think, don't understand them. They can be hard and complicated, but they are some of my favorite to work with.
Yeah.
And they taught me so much when I was over there. I wouldn't say I'm a specialist, but man, and we'll dive into this, I'm sure, but these boys, if you try to fit them into our typical world where we want them to function in a certain way, for someone who's not neurodiverse, they can't, and they don't do very well. So they do need someone to understand how to help them navigate that. And and then people around them to how to support them and help them get what they need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They are, I think one of the things that I'm really proud of our program, especially at the bunkhouse and at Discovery Ranch, is that we are really working with the staff, with the academic team, with everyone to really kind of understand them and to be able to support them. Because a lot of things that they do at the other two houses with the more neurotypical boys do not work with the neurodiverse boys. And it's amazing how just by shifting just a little bit of stuff, all of a sudden they start to flourish, they start to just move forward. It's beautiful.
When they become leaders when they wouldn't have normally in a neurotypical setting.
Yes.
Yeah, I honestly, even if we can get more people to listen to this podcast and understand a neurodiverse boy or girl, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
The better we can provide a future for them to excel in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Like, people need to be more educated on this topic. So let's dive into that.
Okay.
Can you explain the concept of neurodiversity and how it relates to autism spectrum disorder?
So usually those two terms go hand in hand. So neurodiversity, ASD, some of my boys really like to be called autistic. Some of them like to be called neurodiverse. So it's just kind of a blending of the two. The one diagnosis. And so I have a lot of boys that actually don't like being called autistic or neurodiverse. They just like being called, just call me my name and stuff like that. So it's kind of this whole like spectrum of, we're talking about spectrum stuff, but it's just a blending of the two of the one diagnosis. So neurodiversity, autism is just one word.
Well, and it's a spectrum. Help our listeners understand what we mean by that. Because before, it is kind of new. Like, we either said they were autistic or they had Asperger's, and that's no longer the terms we use, right? Yeah. We realize that it's not this black or white diagnosis.
Yes.
Someone... I believe, I talked to another therapist, if you've met one kid who's autistic or spectrum disorder or neurodiverse, you've only met one kid who's autistic spectrum disorder, right? They're all different, and they're all going to have different strengths and limitations.
Yeah. And we can go through like a DSM-5 diagnosis criteria and stuff like that. But I really like to map it out to my parents and to these students that we're pretty much focusing on 4 to 5 main things when we're looking at their strengths and their deficits. So usually the first thing that we're working on with the young men is their emotional regulation piece. A lot of our students come in very dysregulated, they struggle, they have thrown tantrums, they've hit people, they've thrown things around, and so they're coming in learning how to emotionally regulate, how to down-regulate, how to be more flexible in certain situations, how to transition better, all that. So the first thing that we're really working on is those skills on being able to stay cognitive. I talk a lot to the students about their neurology, about how their limbic system is in this, and their superpower is their limbic system. When they get frustrated or stressed out, they tend to go limbic as opposed to cognitive. You and I, we really want to go cognitive when we're stressed out.
Explain to our listeners, what do you mean by limbic?
So limbic is our fight or flight, freeze or forget modality. We tend to use that when the semi-truck is coming at us. We tend to use that when the bear or the mountain lion is charging us. Our limbic system takes over.
It keeps us safe.
It keeps us safe. It protects
our survival,
us. Yeah. And if we had to think our way through those situations, we would not survive. It is a reaction. We move faster when we're limbic. So with these boys, a lot of their limbic system is overdeveloped. It is superpowered, like I said. And so when they get frustrated or stressed, they tend to go limbic, and we have a fight, we have a flight, we have an AWOL, we have a run, or they freeze up. They just want to curl up in a ball. They want to go to bed. They want to do stuff, or they'll forget kind of the situation. So that's kind of the first thing that we really kind of work on with the kids. Another aspect, or another pillar that I call it, because I tell the kids we were trying to work on 4 different pillars. So the emotional regulation piece, but also the social awareness piece. Being socially aware of who you are, your space in the world, and being able to make friends and to break relationships if you break a relationship, how to repair that relationship, but also know that relationships are dynamic. There's a lot going on with a relationship, and to be able to kind of read the room and read kind of that other person and know who you are in that space. because a lot of these kids are very stuck on certain things. They get stuck on Pokemon, or they get stuck on Magic or D&D, and that's all they can talk about, and they can't talk about anything else. And there's no wonder why they're lagging so much with their peers out in the real world, because they can't connect to those peers. They just want to talk about what they want to talk about, and they tend to dominate conversations. So we really kind of teach them about that social awareness piece, and also to read body language, because I know that we're going to talk about nonverbal learning disorder as well in the future. But that is also another big thing. A lot of my boys will come to me and say, "Hey, Chris, I really don't understand why you're teaching this to me, but I understand that it's going to help me in the future." So that social piece, it might not register with our boys of why it's so important, but in the real world, when we're dealing with all the people out in the real world, to have those social graces and being able to communicate with people is going to be so very important. Looking people in the eye, being able to shake people's hands, just all that kind of stuff is important. So,
which as an adult, like, you know, that's a hard thing for even adults to navigate.
Yes.
So you take a child who is not fully developed brain yet,
yes,
and neurodiverse and very concrete and black and white and struggles to read those social cues. Like, that's such an essential skill that they have to learn that doesn't come naturally for them.
No, it does not come naturally. Their part of the brain where they actually see people is held back. It's not working as well as it should be. So with that being said, those are two pillars.
Yep.
And the third pillar is the life skills pillar. So we want them to learn about how to take care of their clothes, how to wash their clothes, how to do hygiene. Especially over at the bunkhouse, we actually encourage the hygiene portion, because that is so huge. If you walk up to someone and their hygiene is lack, then you are going to immediately have a reaction. You're immediately going to say, you know what, I don't want to be this person's friend, or I don't want to be associated with this person. We want them to present well, and so we really push that hygiene, that taking care of their clothing, taking care of their hair, their teeth, all that kind of stuff. Those life skills that are going to deodorant, exactly.
It's a big one I've had to work with our boys on.
Yes, and that is huge. A lot of the boys, some of the boys struggle, some of the boys are really good.
Yeah.
I mean, we go back to that whole piece of, if you've seen one ASD boy, you've seen one ASD boy, because everyone is so different. So that those life skills, even the life skills of making sure that your backpack is put with all your homework and ready to go to school and stuff like that. So that's the other pillar.
So real quick, I had one session with a boy. Sure. We spent the whole time organizing his therapy binder.
Yes.
It came in with papers everywhere and out of hole punches, and we actually spent just the whole session stopping, organizing paper, like putting hole punches in, putting them in, like getting them organized. Because again, it's just like the social skills, like it doesn't come naturally to them. They don't think like, oh, I should, stop and brush my teeth and put on deodorant. Whereas someone who's neurotypical, that may come naturally.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. So these boys have to be taught.
It is out of their awareness.
Yep.
They're not thinking about it.
Yeah.
Anything like that. I've had whole sessions where we've just talked about hygiene.
Yeah.
Like where to scrub really, and where to put deodorant, and
how to wash your body. Yeah.
Exactly.
How to rinse your hair out really well. Yeah.
It's very much.
Okay, so then, sorry to interrupt it, but then the next pillar.
So the fourth pillar and the very last pillar that we kind of focus in on is learning to like self. A lot of these boys, and it kind of makes me emotional, because a lot of these boys hate themselves. I've gotten texts, even leaving Discovery Ranch, I've gotten texts from boys saying, Chris, I hate my autism. I really despise it. I want it to go away and stuff like that. And I really kind of teach them that it can be a strength, that there's a lot of great things about your brain and about all the amazing things that you can do that I can't do. I mean, I've got kids that can code, and I would never be able to code. Or they can figure out computers really quick. I mean, they figure out how to get past our firewalls all the time. They figure out how to code certain things into the computer so that the teachers can't see what they're doing. But we really talk about their neurology and kind of how to like themselves, and to see their strengths and the things that they're working on as something that's positive.
Well, I love that, because I believe in your training that I listened to, like, this isn't going away.
No.
This is part of them. This is something they have to embrace and learn to deal with. And if I agree. Like even someone who has ADHD, you know, wouldn't they fall under the umbrella of being sometimes neurodiverse, right?
Yes.
And so helping, I had actually a mother who was super ADHD, and to help her, she struggled with this at times, learning to love herself, but eventually she came to see it as a superpower.
Yes.
And I mean, some of our most genius people in history have
Albert
ASD,
Einstein, Bill Gates,
ADHD,
Steve
and I just
Jobs.
have a kid who just got diagnosed with ADHD, and I've tried to explain that to her. Like, yes, this has limitations, but once you figure it out and you embrace it, it's going to give you superpowers that other people can't do, and it actually is going to bless your life if you can channel it in that direction.
I agree. It's wonderful. Yeah. And it's that, I think that one actually is the most difficult one. The other ones are pretty concrete because they can pretty much say, okay, if I do these skills, I will stay within my bandwidth of functionality, which is that cognitive realm, and stay pretty cognitive. Or if I just shake people's hands and say nice things to them, then they're probably going to reciprocate that. But that learning to like self is the big one.
It's so abstract.
It is. Yeah.
And it's something that grown adults are still struggling with at times, who aren't on the spectrum.
Yeah. Because these kids have been bullied, they've been maligned, they've been
they know they're
pushed
different.
to the side. They know that they're different, and they don't understand. And I went to a conference once, and the presenter was actually, it helped me out to understand a little bit about chronological age versus mental age.
Yeah.
If you have a level 1,
explain that to our listeners, please.
So usually when they hit their teenage years, they start to lag mentally. These because of the bullying, because of the stress, because of the anxiety and stuff like that, they start to lag behind their peers, and their peers start to just advance in front of them. And so what happened is she said, you know what, if you have a level 1 ASD student and a level 1, so there's 3 levels when it comes to ASD. Level 1s need support, levels 2 needs substantial support, and levels 3 need a very substantial support, I think is how it functions. And so over at DR in the bunkhouse, we have level 1s and level 2s that we're working with. And so she said, when you're looking at an ASD student that's coming into your facility, look at them as chronologically they can be 18 years old. But if they're a level 1, they're probably 2/3 of that age. So we're looking at a 12-year-old mentally. So if it's a level 2, we're looking at a 1/3. So probably 6 to 7 years old mentally, as opposed to their chronological age, if they're 18.
Yeah.
So, and that's how we kind of frame it over at the ranch is, hey, these kids are chronologically might be 18, 16, 15, but mentally they're very young, and we have to help them move that mental age up to their chronological age. And that's through the work that we do with the horses, the work that we do with the rec therapy, the work that we do in the clinical office, and all that. We're helping them reach that chronological age.
I love that. And I think that's helpful for so many parents when we start working with those parents to help educate them that, yes, your son is 14.
Yeah.
But mentally, he's, at this age.
Yeah.
And so you may look at him and say, like, why doesn't he get it?
Yeah.
And why isn't he functioning at this age?
Yeah.
And being frustrated that your son isn't reaching these milestones. Yet when you can help them reframe that and understand that, and then help them know how to help their son. Yeah. It just changes the game for them.
Yeah.
And their frustration.
Yeah.
I feel like, at least through my experience.
Yeah. Our mentality over at the bunkhouse is, and this goes along with the mental chronological age, is that the kids are doing the best they can in the moment.
Oh, yeah.
When they are stressed, when they are frustrated, they are doing the best. Even if they're punching, kicking, fighting, all that kind of stuff, they're doing the best they can. And we are going to encourage them to do better and better and better and better. And that's helping them move that mental age up to their chronological age.
And honestly, if we could get more people to view everyone like that, that we're all doing the best we can and we can do better, I think people would be a lot more empathetic and patient.
I believe that.
Especially with our neurodiverse kids.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears just a little bit to help our listeners understand what is the difference between autism spectrum disorder, which listeners, we may refer to that as ASD going forward, so if you hear that, and nonverbal learning disorder, which we'll refer to as NLD.
Perfect.
But can you explain the difference between those two? Because I think people get confused.
Yeah.
pretty
So
easily.
the whole criteria of when you've seen one ASD boy, you've seen one ASD boys. And a lot of ASD boys will have an NLD diagnosis, or a nonverbal learning diagnosis. And nonverbal learning disorder doesn't mean that the student is nonverbal. In reality, the student might be very verbal. They might talk your ear off. They might just ask you tons of questions that they've asked you every single day for months or however long they're with you. So NLD pretty much means that they're not picking up on the body language that you're putting off. So when I frown, or when I smile, or when my eyes get big, or when I move my tone, anything like that, they're not picking up on that. And I know there's a lot of research out there. I usually use the 20-80 rule. 20% of all the communication that I'm giving off to another person is through my verbal, and 80% is my body language. And so for a student that's not picking up on 80% of my body language, or that is completely confused by my body language, is distressing to them. And so what happens is they become verbal overcompensators. They talk and talk and talk because they're not picking up on any of my body language. So they are going to talk my ear off, trying to get information from me so that they can understand me. So I've had plenty of students, especially level 2 students, that are just, they will not be quiet. And the staff get a little frustrated and say, how do we help this student? And I just say, make the obvious. Just say, hey, I can see you're looking for something. Are you worried about our relationship? Are you worried about this or that? And then if they say, yes, I'm trying to figure out my relationship with you, explain it to them. Let them know that, hey, my relationship with you is solid. It's good. You're my friend. We're working good together, something like that, to help calm them down, because they're definitely fishing for information because they're not picking up on that body language.
I think that's the best way in all my career that I've heard someone explain it. Honestly, as a clinician, I've been not as clear on the difference between that, I'll have to admit. And so hearing you explain it that way just makes so much more sense. With
the brain that they currently have, and kind of all the different little nuances and things that they're working on, they're trying their best to understand us. And those questions are great because it just allows us to clarify things. I've had a student, he wanted to show me a video, a music video, and we spent 10 minutes watching this video. And I spent the entire time watching it, engaged in it, not yawning, not doing anything. And then I said, wow, I really enjoyed that. And I looked at him, he said, Chris, you didn't like it. And I said, no, what gave you the idea that I didn't like it? And he said, well, normally people don't like that type of video. And I said, well, my body language, what did I show you that showed that I liked it? And he was able to say, well, you stayed focused the entire time. 10 minutes, your eyes were on it, you didn't yawn, you didn't do anything. And so what does that tell you? He goes, oh, maybe you did like it.
Oh.
And I said, perfect. So that my body language showed you, and they could pick out your body language easy, but it doesn't register.
Yeah.
It doesn't register with them, and so they're not using it.
Well, and not to get us off track, but just to even point out that you throw in texting and social media, that takes all that out for them to even try to process. They're going to misread things and maybe say things on social media or post things that are offensive or cause issues. And so that's a really tricky and I would say a little bit of a dangerous world for them to navigate. And need extra help. I mean, a normal teenage kid struggles in that world, right?
Yeah.
So we could probably do a whole episode on that.
And I would love to do the research on ASD students and people wearing masks.
Oh.
Because again, they're struggling to see body language, and to have a mask on in front of them where they can't even see your face or your mouth or how you're emoting or anything like that. I would love to see if that really kind of slowed their progress down as well.
Interesting.
Because someone would need to do that.
So it's important for our listeners to know that boys are nearly 5 times more likely than girls to be diagnosed with ASD.
Yeah.
That's what we were finding. This significant gender disparity in diagnosis rate is a well-established finding in autism research, and that anxiety is commonplace among teenagers with ASD. We have around 39% of youth with ASD with a diagnosed anxiety disorder, making it a significant concern for this population.
Yes.
Do you feel that's in correlation with what you see?
Yes. And so I think girls are actually we're actually starting to find more ASD girls.
Yes. They're doing better at diagnosing the girls.
Exactly. I think they don't know. The research shows that there's different factors that contribute to a boy or a girl that's diagnosed with ASD. And one of the things that I have seen, and I think they're still doing the research on, was that some of the ASD qualities or some of the ASD genetics actually comes through the Y chromosome.
Really?
And so the father, the Y chromosome, is transmitted to a boy who is an XY. And so that comes through that Y chromosome, but that's partially what we're seeing. Other things are environmental factors, other things are in utero problems and stuff like that. But what we're also seeing is that boys tend to externalize their issues a little bit more than girls.
Yeah.
Girls
it's more
tend
behavioral, you see
Yes.
it. It's more pronounced.
Exactly.
You say.
So if a boy is pronouncing it more, is more externalizing it, then you're going to focus on that boy that's externalizing it.
Yeah.
Girls tend to internalize it, which means that they kind of go inside. They might be shy, or they might be a little bit more into fantasy or play and stuff like that, which it looks okay, but also there might be an ASD diagnosis along with that.
I mean, we're finding this too, even with ADHD, that girls are masking better.
Yes.
And that some, women are going into their 30s being undiagnosed with ASD or, ADHD, and they've just kind of survived.
They've masked it really well.
White-knuckled their whole life, and
Yeah.
now it's really manifesting as they get older.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what we're kind of seeing with the boys. But I think, like you said, we are getting better at diagnosing these kids, and so we are seeing a little bit more girls start to get into the pool and be diagnosed correctly.
And get the help that they finally need.
Exactly.
I have a family member who didn't get diagnosed till she was in her 40s. And once she finally got this diagnosis, it was like everything made sense.
Yeah.
And she could finally get the help she needed and the right medication. And people were kinder and more empathetic and more understanding of her difficulties. And that's when she started to really thrive.
Yeah.
So I think the last research piece that I'm curious your thoughts on, that executive functioning difficulties often become more pronounced during the teenage year. The gap in executive functioning skills between teens with autism and their neurotypical peers tend to widen during adolescence.
Yeah. So one thing that we're really kind of seeing right now is with puberty, with the hormones, with everything, especially during those tumultuous teenage years, there is a struggle. So we see this kind of this their brain is holding back because of the anxiety. So all these kids are working on a stress relax principle. And so when there's too much stress, they go limbic, and they have a fight or flight reaction, and that holds them back. And so they're not able to develop enough to be able to develop those executive functioning skills, those task making, those goal setting, those being able to see into the future and actually set
time management,
be able to be able to work in the here and now and stuff like that. That is a struggle for them because they're always looking for the relax. They want to play video games. They want to read books. They want to do anything to feel that relax. And their brain is not allowing them to. And so they're always anxious.
So helping our parents and listeners better understand how to meet the needs of their anxiety, their executive functioning.
Exactly.
And that parents who are struggling with this, you're not alone.
Yeah.
If your kid who's on the spectrum, has these outbursts, is really anxious, not knowing how to do simple little tasks, and like you said, those executive functioning skills, like, you're not alone, parents.
Yeah. That's our biggest thing that we're working on with our boys, is because they have that finite ability to stay cognitive, and I call it the bandwidth of functionality. So they're able to stay cognitive within this bandwidth of functionality. So if they get too stressed out, and we want to stress, I mean, we want them to learn that stress is a good thing. We want to feel stressed. We want to be able to get up in the morning. We want to be able to shower. We want to be able to accomplish things in the day. So stress is not a bad thing, but the kids have learned that any type of stress is a bad thing, and they have to stay away from it as much as possible because
it's that black or white.
Yeah.
It's either good or bad.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, no, there's a in between.
Yeah. Because for them, stress means they go limbic, they have a fight or flight response, and they hurt people. They push people away because they're very aware in the aftermath, after a limbic episode, that they've hurt people, that they've pushed people around, that they've caused damage to friendships and stuff like that. So they want to stay away from that. And when they do go limbic, it causes a lot of problems. So they fight to stay relaxed. And so they actually go the opposite direction.
Which is usually a path of least resistance and usually not helpful for them.
Exactly.
And actually can be avoiding things, therefore increasing their anxiety.
Exactly.
But not realizing it.
Yeah. So
this vicious cycle.
It is. It's horrible. So they put off doing homework.
Yep.
They put off making friends. They put off talking to their parents. They put off this and that, and it just causes more anxiety. And then all of a sudden they have this limbic response, and it's funny because I tell the staff I don't want to see limbic responses. Because we don't learn a lot, because the limbic system doesn't create memories. It doesn't really pull memories. So you can't really learn from a limbic response. It's just a reaction. And the boys actually enjoy being limbic. So there's actually boys that...
There's a hit, an adrenaline rush to it, right?
There's and I call it also being like going Hulk.
Yeah.
I mean, if we look at Bruce Banner and how when he goes into the Hulk mode, he becomes this raging machine. He gets all this energy out, and then you see him after when he's back into his normal human form. He's relaxed, he's calm, he's like, oh, I'm tired and stuff like that.
Super smart.
Yeah, super smart. And the boys like it. So they actually start to feel this anxiety. They realize, I can't stop it. I'm going in that direction. I might as well just let it out and go that way. I had an experience at another facility, another ASD program, and I had this kid in my office, and he was going crazy. I mean, he was literally, and I was texting the staff. I was like, get over here now. He's going to hurt me. He was throwing things at me. He was breaking things. He was calling me horrible names. And so the staff finally was able to get him out. And I was looking at the wall. I was trying to keep him calm. I was like, we're not going to talk about this. You can destroy that if you want to and just get it out, but don't hurt me. And the staff got him out. And then the next day he comes to my office. He says, Chris, I need this, 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 and this. And I said, we'll pretend his name is Josh. Josh, we need to talk about our relationship because what happened yesterday wasn't acceptable, and we need to work on that because it just went down the wrong path. And he told me something that I'll never forget. He said, Chris, I feel better, so you should feel better too. And I said, I appreciate that answer, and that's not how it works with me. I had to sit there and control my emotions, not protect myself, I had to fight to not go limbic and to stay very cognitive and to work with you while you were struggling. And I'm still sitting in this. I'm still emotional from this. You might feel better because you kind of hulked out and you kind of went a little bit energetic, but I'm still sitting in this. And that's the mentality that they like at times to go limbic.
I love that because I've had similar experiences where they're like, I've moved on.
Yeah.
Why are you still upset about this?
Exactly. And I'm like,
why are your feelings hurt? And yeah, I was like, no, we need to process this because I'm not okay now.
Yeah.
You might feel better, but I don't.
Yeah, I'm a human being. I'm still sitting in those emotions.
It was kind of that egocentric view of, well, because I feel this way, everyone else must feel this way, and helping them move past that and realize that not everyone feels and thinks the same way as them. Mm-hmm. And there's so much dynamics and variety in different people's reaction, which is complex. That's going to help them progress in the world.
Exactly.
And they can get past this me vision.
Yeah.
Which is hard.
It is very hard.
And it's hard for someone who's neurotypical to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep repeating that. This is tough for someone who has a neurotypical brain. Yeah. Imagine if it's tough for you, how much harder it is for our boys who are neurodiverse.
Exactly.
We've talked on some of these, but what are some other common characteristics of ASD in teenage boys that you see?
Very intelligent. I think that I see a lot of being able to really kind of understand books, understand mathematics, understand computers and technology and stuff like that. Very intelligent, very they have a mastery of the English language. They can talk your ear off. They can debate with you. I've had staff say, no, I'm going to go in there and debate with this kid, and I'll come out on top. And I'm like, no, you won't. It's that young man is going to be able to talk your ear off. They have just a unique grasp of the English language. They can be very kind and very social. They tend to look out for the younger person because they've been bullied and maligned and kind of pushed to the side a lot. Just a lot of...
Can I just say something about that? When at Oxbow, when they did put the kids who were all ASD together, the camaraderie and the kids who stepped up as leaders was phenomenal to watch, because they didn't have that chance. And when a new boy came in who struggled, rather than some of our neurotypical boys who would bully and shut them down and get upset and frustrated easily, these boys helped and embraced them and guided them through the program. And it was just so cool to see, because they're like, oh, I've been there. Yeah. I know it's hard.
And it's interesting because I say it's their people, but when a boy comes to the bunkhouse and he's dysregulated, he's struggling, he's coming from school or something like that, from an outside program, he comes into the bunkhouse and all of a sudden he just realizes that these are his people, meaning that these kids are also on the spectrum. They understand him. They're willing to forgive him and move on. We work on that connect, break, repair model with the boys in the bunkhouse. So you're going to connect with your peers, and then you're going to have a break. And then there's going to be a time when I'm going to have to be involved, and we're going to call the other kid in, and we're going to talk about it and repair that relationship. And then we're going to connect again. So connect, break, repair, connect, break, repair.
Love
and
it.
It's a great method, and the kids really like. We'll have a kid come in from another house that's ASD, and he'll come into the bunkhouse and he'll just thrive and he'll flourish in there, and the therapist will be like, what's going on? And I go, these are his people. This is who he is. And so he's connecting with those people with those kids that understand him. And they talk all the nerd talk. They talk all the D&D and the magic card and all the other stuff. But they have this unique language that they just chat about. And that's them.
I love it.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of strengths. I mean, we've talked about a lot of the struggles with lack of insight and poor verbal skills, or not verbal, excuse me, socially awkward, anxiety, depression, low self-esteem.
Yes.
But I mean, I think this is great for our parents to hear, like, it's easy to focus on those struggles.
Yes.
And it's easy to focus on the behavior and where they lack. Yet, if we can help some of our parents understand that your kids also have these, which a lot of parents also see. Yes. But it's hard.
It is.
When you're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
To see that they can be incredibly creative and adaptive.
Yes.
And they can be just a desire to succeed. I was just going over some of the notes you said from your training that I had. Like, I just really loved all these highlights. Yeah. Is there any others you want to talk about?
What you were saying reminded me a little bit of some of the skills that I teach the parents as they come through. And one of the skills that we really kind of teach the parent is to put the energy back onto the student. So the student has in the past, when he's been at home, has maybe caused a lot of ruckus or caused a lot of problems and stuff like that. And the parents want to fix it immediately. They want to tap it down. They want to go in and just take care of the problem without really having the student look at the problem. So I have to teach the parents that it's much more difficult to say, hey, I appreciate you telling me that your teacher is not giving you the correct grades, and what are you going to do, little Billy, to solve this problem? Put it back on the student so that they can start to develop those skills of, I'm empowered, I'm capable, I can do this, and not.
I think that was one of my biggest things with one of my kids I worked with, was helping the parents no longer enable and rescue their kid because he had these limitations and struggles, but to help them empower and put it back on him. Exactly. And that was a lot of our family therapy work that we did, because they would undercut him and they would undermine him, and because, he couldn't do it and he needed extra help. And it really, he started to have this self-helplessness, you know, and depend on them. And when I always said, no, like, we're going to let him struggle, and he's going to thrive and do better, and they could finally step back and do that. It's when I think things really shifted. Yeah. And just really changed for him.
Yeah, this whole victim mentality, it needs to end with these students, because the parents do want to fix the problem. It's like walking on eggshells around them.
Yeah.
And they're going to have blow-ups and they're going to have struggles. And the more that we stay consistent and the more that we say, hey, you are capable. Yeah, if you have a problem, come to me and I might give you some suggestions, but I'm going to have you take the lion's share of the work to resolve this issue. And I'm not going to rescue you. I'm not going to have you be a victim. I'm going to coach you. And that's how it's going to have to work.
Our kids are so much more capable
Yes.
than we at times give them credit for, and allow them to struggle and then thrive.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to watch your kids struggle,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
whether they're on the spectrum or not.
Yeah.
It's scary. You don't want your kid to fail. So it's easier to kind of ease your own anxiety and jump in and rescue than to let them struggle and then figure it out.
Yeah.
But when you do, parents, man, is it so rewarding.
It is. It is. Like we have kids that do the ropes course and they'll climb the wall and they'll get up maybe the first time they get up 10 feet and they're so proud of themselves. And we just say, just a little bit more, just a little bit more. And they get up all the way to the top and they're like, bring me down, bring me down, bring me down. And we're just like, well, just sit there for a little bit.
Yep.
Just relax. Just relax. Well, can you just bring me down? Just sit there and let's talk a little bit. And all of a sudden they're like, no, I can do this. And they get up to the very top. And it's amazing when they get up to the very top because it's like, I did this by myself with some support from you guys, but I did the lion's share and I was successful. And it's just a blueprint for how to do other things. Yeah. So it just starts them like, I can't do this, Chris. Well, you did the ropes course. You got on the horse. You got up on the rock wall. You did all these amazing things on the hike. And then they're like, oh, yeah, I did do all that kind of stuff, and I can do this too.
Moving to the next question. How can parents best understand their teenage son's perspective and needs?
So a lot of times I'll tell the parents to look at websites, to get in groups, to get in Facebook. So there's actually Facebook groups that have parents that also have sons that are on the spectrum as well. And so it's really nice for those parents to actually ask questions and realize that they're not alone.
It's huge.
It's huge.
Because these parents feel like they're on an island and no one understands them.
Exactly. And to be okay with their son's perspectives and needs and to realize, hey, I've been worried so much about my boy, and usually worry creates a sense of helplessness. It creates a sense of being stuck. And the more knowledge, the more information we get to help them out, and the more that we implement it is so very helpful for these parents. I tell the students, because all my students worry. They all worry and worry. And I give them a little quote that says, you know what, worry is like a rocking horse. It makes a lot of movement, but you don't go anywhere.
I love that.
And so I always tell them, I said, what's the exact opposite of worry? And they're like, well, I don't know. And I'll say action. Action is the exact opposite of worry, because worry creates this energy, but it doesn't go anywhere. Action creates some type of forward movement and momentum. And once we start down that action phase, where we're actually learning, we're actually growing, we're actually implementing the stuff, we're talking to people, we're talking to the school district, we are talking and just getting that action going, it relieves a lot of that worry, because now we're empowered. We feel better because we're actually moving forward with them. So they're going to have a lot of needs. Let's start that whole action phase where we're doing our part to get them the support they need. Communicate with those professionals. Get other people involved. That's very, very important.
How can parents shift their perspective from fixing their child to embracing their neurodiversity?
That's a big one, because I have a lot of parents that will come to me and say, fix my kid.
Yeah. Change him. Make him
better.
neurotypical,
Yeah.
Chris.
So I have if I have a level 2 or even a level 1 come in, and I can really kind of see the student and kind of maybe his trajectory of where he's going to go. And then I have parents say, you know what, he's going to be the next lawyer, he's going to be the next rocket scientist, and
we're going to go to this college,
Yes.
They're going to make this much money.
Yeah, and I have to be very kind to the parents and just say, okay, let's look at that. And then later on down the line, when they trust me a little bit more and they feel a little bit more comfortable with me, I'll say, hey, I'm impressed, and most likely he's going to need a lot of support in his life. He's going to be happy. He's going to be successful, but he might not grow to be what you would like him to be. He might be a very just relaxed, good kid that does some college work and will need the support he needs. but being able to teach the parents that there's a reality, there's a fantasy that the parents have, and then there's reality.
We all have it as a parent.
Yes.
We all have these hopes and dreams for our kids, and often they're biased.
Yes.
And we kind of project our own
Yeah.
vision onto them.
Yes.
Rather than seeing what our kids need.
Yeah.
And embracing where they actually are. And it's so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be able to mourn with those parents, because their fantasy, their whole thing is dashed, because they're hoping that their son or their daughter is going to be this amazing. They're going to have this amazing career and this amazing other stuff, and we just have to say, you know what, he's going to be amazing, and we're going to have to look at this area of his life and say, this is what we're going to focus in on, because this is where he's going to be successful. He's probably not going to be successful in master's levels or doctorate level places, or even in associate levels or bachelor levels, but he's going to have a happy, good life. And we have to, and it's sad. It is really sad when the parents are like, that realization comes and they're like, oh.
Well, there's a lot of grief. I did a podcast with a therapist at Oxbow, and he shared a poem. I will have to look it up, but it's something about ending up in Holland versus Venice, Italy.
Yeah.
Have you heard that poem?
I haven't heard that poem. But
I'll have to find it. It's so good and share it with you. But it's just, it talks about these parents getting on this train, planning for this trip to Venice, Italy, and they go to end up in Holland, and it's like, well, this isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And the grief and the loss that comes with it. But then realizing the beauty that's in Holland versus Venice, Italy. And helping our parents be like, okay, he may not reach these goals and expectations you have, but let's find that silver lining and embrace the beauty that is there.
Yes.
What resources would you recommend for parents who want to learn more about ASD in teenage boys?
Definitely looking at the just what the researchers have put out there, and then also going to those Facebook pages or going to some type of group. They actually have ASD groups where you can actually go and meet with other parents and talk and just be able to understand your boy and stuff like that. But also be able to talk to professionals. I think professionals will be able to kind of logically be able to lay it out. I think parents are very emotionally involved with their students or their sons and stuff like that, and they need that alternative kind of eyes on the student. So just having that wide range of information, and if it's too much, then being able to go to an ASD professional and just be able to sit down and just say, I just need to pick your brain. These are the things I'm seeing. What can I do? How can I help him out? Because a professional will be able to kind of lead that person in the right direction.
So finding maybe the support network they need, the groups.
Yes.
And then finding someone who specializes.
Yes.
It's not all therapists specialize in this.
No.
Or have the breadth of knowledge that you have. And so it's important to find someone who does, right?
Exactly. And be able to empathize with the parents and be able to understand the parents and know what they can digest at the time.
Yeah.
Because parents, they want certain things, and you might give them too much at times. So being able to hold back at times and say, hey, let's talk about that next time, or let's work on this and stuff like that is going to be important. Absolutely.
Well, parents, if you're listening and we sound like we're talking about your son, then you've come to the right place. Know that you're not alone, that if your son struggles with any of the things that we've discussed, please stay tuned, because in our next episodes, the specific one, we're going to be talking about everyday challenges that your autistic boy may be facing. So stay tuned. Thanks again, Chris, for joining us. And this episode has been so enlightening to me and our listeners, hopefully, of understanding kids who are on the spectrum better, who are neurodiverse, and that there's a place for them, and we need to better understand to meet their needs so that they can thrive, and we can see those strengths and the beauty and that silver lining in them. And then to our parents who are listening, you're not alone.
Yeah. Well, there is help out there.